All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Power Hour. Today, we are going to talk about the screen layout, which is a scenario screen that exists in Power Apps, and how to customize it. So, we're going to go into the details of how to use that out of the box tutorial screen and make it your own. All right, let's do the splash. All right, welcome to Power Hour again. I'm Laura Rogers. This is Joelle Jobson. And this is a show that we've been doing for about 10 years now. That is used to be just called SharePoint Power Hour. And now it is everything having to do with Microsoft 365. And basically, we are not developers. We're not programmers. We're not going to go over anything super technical. But we're going to talk about sort of more geared toward power users and business users in Microsoft 365. And the fun thing about being live is that we have a live chat going on. So if wherever you're watching this, there's going to be a link below to click to request to join. And we have a request form because basically we manually invite you all into Teams as external users and we chat in Teams. So we have this lively chat going on. So our demonstration is going to be in Power Apps today, but feel free to kind of discuss it the whole time and ask questions. And that's the fun thing, is that we get to, you don't know what's going to happen, and we get to have all these conversations about whatever we're doing. So you all overwhelmingly voted for this concept in the newsletter that I sent out yesterday. So this will be fun. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Make sure this thing is muted. Okay. Okay, so here is Power Apps. I'm not going to spend too much time telling you what Power Apps is, but over in the, if you're brand new to Power Apps, over in the resources for this chat, I've put some links, a link to a free Power Apps Basics class that we have on our site, which is a good place to start. And I'm going to go ahead and show you where that is. This is where we're chatting in Teams. So in Teams, we have this Posts tab, which is the first tab in this Power Hour team. And then I pinned the resources. So here's this topic that I pinned here, 1214 topic. And then I have a tab for the last few Power Hours that we've had. So I go to today's tab, and then this little conversation icon up here is where you can basically have conversations with us and push play and watch it all in one place. So welcome everybody. All right, so here's just the main screen for Power Apps. I've already opened one up. So when you are in an existing Power App, this is where you're going to be able to find this screen. Now, I just wanted to have some other stuff in the Power App. I didn't want to have just a completely blank one, just to be able to kind of have a concept to teach about. So this Power App is going to be, we're going to pretend this is your company's travel request app. And so when people go to the Power App, you want to teach them how to use it. So that's the purpose of this tutorial screen. So when I click new screen here, I can click new screen here, or I can click new screen like up here at the top. Wherever you go, you have to click this scenarios tab here. So all of the layouts used to be just in one big long list here, but then there got to be so many of them that Microsoft decided to call it scenarios and put it on its own tab. So this tutorial right here is what I'm referring to. So you go to new screen, scenarios, and then click tutorial. So feel free to follow along if you like to try it. It's just out of the box. And then it's going to create a new screen in your app. Some of those other, basically the little scenarios, some of you even have data sources built in. Like there's one called meetings, there's one called that you send an email, and those will actually add the Outlook connector to your app. So here's what this one looks like. When I preview my app, it says this is basically pretending that it's going to be your tutorial. So you're going to have, you're going to welcome people to your app, and you can show them information about things that you want to show them around in your app, just kind of concepts to teach them here, and have as many little dots down here at the bottom as you want. And then you also provide them the ability to skip this tutorial. So what you might do is have, I'm going to rename this, I'll call it SCR tutorial. And okay, and then you could take your tutorial, and whenever, I'm going to just move it all the way up to the top here so that it's the very first screen that people arrive on. Now, your app does have a start screen property that you could just put the name of this screen, but I like to just, when I'm developing it, I like to know that just the first thing up here on the left is the first screen they're arriving on. It's just makes more, it's my OCD, it makes more sense to me to see it up here. So whatever's the first one, that will by default be what they arrive on. And then when they click skip, if they, you know, open up the app, they've already used the app plenty of times, they don't need to watch the tutorial, then you could have this label clickable and take them to, so this is just, this actually just takes them to the last step in here, but you could just make it like take them to whatever you want the first screen of your app to be if they don't need help. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is we'll talk about what this whole screen entails and what's in it, and then what, you know, how you can customize it. So I have got a slide here. I've got one slide. This is an excerpt from our Advanced Power Apps training course at iwmentor.com. And so this is about the tutorial screen. So where you're going to find all of the magic behind this tutorial screen is basically it's got a hidden little table in here. So, and it's behind these dots, not behind the dots, but the dots are where everything exists. So when you click on these little dots at the bottom, that is a gallery. That is actually a Power Apps gallery. Galleries are things we usually use for showing a list of stuff somewhere in our app, like a list of items, but this is a horizontal gallery and it's used to show some dots. So the gallery is where it has this table, and then this is where you're going to customize all the text and the images. So what you can do is put your own images in here so that each time they click next and go to the next thing, it will have your verbiage and your image. So this is going to be the gist of what we're going to be doing here in Power Hour is we'll be customizing it with our own stuff. Now I don't have images that are help images having to do with a travel app. I'm just going to upload some random images off my computer so you can see how to put them in there. But that's what we'll be doing here is first putting our images in here so that the images exist, and then customizing this gallery. Any questions so far? Let's see. Let me move this over here. Okay, cool. So first of all, so before I start customizing this, I kind of want to decide what images I want to use. And so the thing about media in your Power App, let me go ahead and remove that, is here's the media on the far left in your Power App. Can y'all see that okay? Let me know if y'all think I should zoom in the browser if I need to make that bigger. There's a point in which Power App starts looking really wonky when you zoom in too far. So I just want to make sure that looks okay. Now, media in your Power App, that's going to be things that you always want to be there. Like if you have a company logo that you want to display on the welcome screen, or if you have images like this, like that are going to be teaching people how to do something in your app. Or maybe you even have a training video. Maybe one of the things that you want to have that you want to show them somewhere in your app is a video you've created that you've put in the app that teaches them how to use the app, or even audio. So media is where you're going to put those. Now, the reason I'm saying that is that sometimes you'll have an app where you want people to be filling out a form, and then you want them to be taking a picture with their camera and uploading it into the app, and that's totally different. So that's going to be the user driven, and that's going to be that's not going to be embedded in the app. That's not going to be in the media. That's something that somebody's filling out in a form and uploading, like maybe as a SharePoint list attachment. So that's the difference. So when I click upload, then I'm going to get, so here I have a bunch of like graphics that I created for, you know, Cyber Monday and stuff like that. So I'm going to go ahead and open. I'm not sure why this graphic has the name Boss Babe. I think I'd used some sort of template when I created the image, and that's what it was called. And then let's see, quote idea. I'm kind of trying to make them all around the same sort of dimensions so that when the person clicks next, they're not getting like all these different sizes images. So that's something, oops, can't use that one again. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, just how you want it to look and like the sizes of them. Let's do another one. And again, these just all have just whatever image names they had in my computer. I didn't spend time trying to make them have nicer names. Now let me go ahead and I want to do a screenshot of these image names because I need to just make sure that I can see them and I remember what the names of them are, so that when I'm filling out that formula, so I'm just going to be typing them in there. So let's go ahead and go here. So obviously this panel is still just here on the left, but if I was somewhere else, then I wouldn't be able to see them. So this is how I can see what the names are when I'm going to type them in the formula. So I've got my gallery. So let's look at what this gallery consists of. What is the gallery? What are the controls in the gallery? So this gallery it will automatically create for you is called Tutorial Navigator 1. And then all it has in it is a circle. So it's got circle 1. And then let's go see. So when I click on each circle, it's what's taking me to the next thing, or I'm clicking the next button to go to the next thing. So what it's got built in here is something called this variable called guide step. So that is the variable that this tutorial is using to know which step that it is currently on as the person's clicking through this gallery. So as I click each circle, it's going to set this variable called guide step, and it's going to set it to whatever this item.step is. So when I see the concept of this item in a gallery, this item is referring to, okay, so I have a list of items. I have 4 items. It knows which one the person has clicked on, and that is this item. So let's go, that kind of takes me to, let's go look at the items property. So I know kind of like this top left corner is kind of covered up, but I just want you to see that I'm going to the items property of the gallery. So to make sure I have to have the whole gallery selected. See, I select the whole gallery, not just the circle. And then the items property is here. So that is what I'm currently on. And then I'll expand that out. So here is all the items property consists of. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just put my own images in here. So I've got 2 columns in this sample gallery. I've got 3, look. So I've got step, I've got text, and then I've got image. Now, the way that Power Apps sees data is in this little sort of structure of curly brackets and the names of each column and then a semicolon. So it's building this little table on the fly to be able to show you what that data looks like, or kind of just, it's basically building this table that only exists in this one place. So this is not like a table of information that's coming from a database. It's not coming from SharePoint. This is just only exists in this one spot. I'm not sure why it's got weird, like the colors are a little weird in here, but maybe that'll resolve itself. So let me show you this concept of why, kind of what this structure is in Power Apps. So you'll understand, you know, what that syntax is and what it's for. So tables are, and this is not a power, these are not Power Apps concepts. These are just general technology concepts. So a table in a database, it equals the same structure as like a list, like a SharePoint list, or even like a spreadsheet list of information. And in that table, your fields are also called columns. I usually interchange those concepts when I'm talking about fields or columns. So that's your A, B, C, D, E. And then your record, each record in here is a row. And then you have the value that's in the row, basically in that cell in Excel. So then this is the way Power Apps sees it. So Power Apps sees it in this specific structure. Sorry, let me move that. And then, was that in the way on the previous screen? That little box? No, maybe it wasn't. that little, it was like a little Snagit thing telling me to upgrade. Anyway, this is what the Power Apps screen looks like. And then this is what, that's what Excel looks like. And then this is the way Power Apps sees it structured. Okay, so here is the same exact, so I'm trying to show you the same exact list of data here on the screen is, this is the way Power Apps would see it. So it's got things that are text in quotes, things that are numbers or without quotes, and each column has the name of the column and a colon, and then between it, it's got a comma and the name of another column and a colon. And then it's got these curly brackets around each row and then a comma after each row. So this structure is the way that this is the structure that it's using here in this little table. So I have step is my first column, text is my next column, and then image is here. So each one of these little dots has a step, text, and an image. So the image is where I'm going to go look at the names of my images, and I'm going to, instead of sample image, just start typing. And as soon as I start typing the name of an image, it kind of prompts me down here. You can see it actually sees the full name of that image that I have. And then I'll go get rid of that other sample image and I'll put quote. There's a quote idea. And then the third one is there's still time. And then this other one just has a cryptic name. And notice that I don't need to put like a .jpg or anything like that. It's just putting the name of each image. So now that I've put the name of each image, let's see what it looks like. So I've got my first dot here. And then now it's showing my first image. And I can go between each one and I can go backwards. And I can also click each dot down here and to go back and forth. Okay, so how does that all work? And first of all, I do need to put my own text in here. So I go back to, how do I get to that data, that little table, is I go to my gallery and I have to select the whole gallery. So I have to make sure that I've selected the whole gallery and not just this one little circle, because I'm not going to see the items property if I don't select the whole gallery. So then it's defining this table, and this is where I can put my own words here. So obviously I'm not going to sit here and just type fake information in all of these, but I want you to see that this is where, notice that as soon as I type this information, this is my own verbiage, this is where it changes it just right here on the left. Now we can see that how we've changed it and how that we put our own data in here, but how does this work? You know, if you wanted to build something similar in your own app, how does this actually function? How does it show all these different images as you click through the different dots? So let's go see, first of all, the image here. So this is an image property. So when I am inserting something, I can go to the far left, and image is what has been inserted here. But then for the image itself, for the actual image property of the image, that's where it's got a variable going on in here. So what it's doing is, let's go kind of dissect what it's doing. And I'm going to click Format Text here to kind of spread this out to make it a little bit more readable. So if it's blank, guide step. So now the guide step, when you arrive on this screen, if there isn't a number that somebody's clicked on, then it would be blank. Then there would be no variable in there yet. Because as people start clicking through the tutorial, that's what the clicks are what sets the variable, but it's going to start off as blank. So if the guide step variable is blank, then what do we want to do? So then it's using the first function. So the first function is going to point to a list of things, and it's going to give you the first thing in that list of things. So let's look at this formula and how it works. So I want to get the first thing in, see, it says first and then source. So you just tell it what your source is. So my source is going to be the Tutorial Navigator 1, that's the name of the gallery, and then just all items. So everything in that gallery, dot, and then when you do a dot here, it's going to give you the 3 different columns to pick from. See, circle, image, step, text. So it's just telling it that I want to see the first image in that list of things. Oh, Carolyn says, can you change the color of the arrows in the background color? Yes. The way you do that is just, you just click on the arrow and you can just change the color this way, like that. Okay, yeah, you would just select it and just pick a different color. And same thing with the circle. You could just click on the circle and then the circle fill is going to be the background color. Okay, so I was looking at this image. Okay, so if it's blank, just show the first thing. Otherwise, if it's not blank, so this is the else, see the else up here, then what do I want to do? I want to show the specific image that for the step that I've clicked on. So how does it know what step I've clicked on? It knows because it's got this variable that it's setting. So before we can understand how the lookup works, let's go look at this variable. So I'm going to click on the third thing here. I just previewed it and I'm just clicking on the third thing. And so that's the first thing that I showed you, was that when I click on this in the on select, not the on select of the whole gallery, but the on select of this circle, see, it's setting this variable called guide step to this item.step. So it knows that I clicked on the third item. And so let's go look at where that variable is. My global variables, guide step. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2. So the third thing I clicked on is going to be a 2. So it tells me the number 2. And of course, with variables, it's going to show me all the different places where I'm using that variable. So when I've got that next button that people are clicking, it's also setting the variable there. And when they're clicking the previous button, it's also setting it there. And we're going to go look at all those as well. But this is the one spot where you could look at that variable and know every place that's using that variable, where it's being defined and all the spots that it's being used to. So there's a lot of complexity going on in this seemingly fairly simple little screen. All the other ones have a lot going on as well. So the lookup, I'm going to go back to the lookup so we can understand how that works. So the lookup is going to be, I've got to go back to my, not the table, but the variable. When I click on it and it sets the variable, what was I on that I was looking at the value? Oh, here we go, right here. Sorry, I was looking at the image. This is just how it knows which image to show me. So if it is blank, it's going to show me the first image. Otherwise, it's going to do a lookup to that list of items in that gallery so that's the part of how the lookup concept works. You tell it the source. So lookup source is that list of things in the gallery. The condition is where step, So step is that column inside of this little table where step equals and then whatever the variable is. So then it's going to return me that one particular table item that has this same number. So it's a step number 2 as the thing I've clicked on. And then it's going to return me, it's got like dot image here. So then it's going to return me the image. So that's how it knows which image to show. So the image itself is dynamic. All right. Is anybody, like, as I'm going, you all tell me in the chat if you think this seems like something that you'd want to add to your apps that you think would be helpful if people open up apps and they're not really sure what to do or how things work, if this would be a nice, easy, obvious thing to be able to add in there to give them a little help so that maybe you get less phone calls, so that people kind of understand what's going on in there. It's very lovely too. So then how does it go back and forth between them? So obviously I showed you how you can do the on select. The on select of this circle itself takes you to the next thing. And then these arrows also do that. So then I'm going to get to in a minute why this circle is filled in, how it knows to do that. So when I click an arrow, and this is the on select of the arrow of this is the right arrow, and it's called icon next. It's going to set the guide step to, this has got a minimum min is the function. So let's crack this open. So it's setting, that's that same variable, the guide step, and it's going to find what is the minimum number. So with the minimum function, you're telling it what is the minimum of this number, this number, this number, and you give it several different numbers, and what it returns is the lowest number. So I'm going to say set the variable to whatever the minimum is of this guide step that I'm currently on plus 1, or the very last thing in the entire list of, and in this case it would be 0, 1, 2, 3. That would be the last thing. So remember, you give it a list of things like this table. The last function gives it the very last thing. So out of these two numbers, which is the minimum? And that's how it knows which step to go to. So guide step plus 1. So right now I'm on 0, 1, 2. I'm on 2. So guide step plus 1 is 3. But also the last item in our list of things is also 3. So in this particular case, when I have this third circle selected, these two things are going to be the same. So it's going to return me a 3 either way. Let's go look at what the back arrow does. It's probably something similar. It's going to set the current variable that of the guide step to the maximum. So the other one used the minimum. This one's going to use the maximum. So the current guide step minus 1. So right now I'm on 2. So 2 minus 1 is 1. So it's going to get me the maximum of 1, or the first thing in the list, which is a 0. So the maximum of two numbers, one of them's 1 and one of them 0, the maximum is going to be 1, right? So 1 is a greater number. So then that's how it knows that when I click the back arrow to change itself to 1 here, right? A lot of math. You didn't know you were going to be doing this much math today, did you? So, yeah, I didn't either. So, math, yay. All right, so here's, now we're going to look at how that little circle gets darker when we click on it. So I'm going to select the circle itself, and that particular property of the circle, I just happen to know that's the fill color. So I can go a couple of different ways I can get to the fill color. I can look for it alphabetically over here. I can also click that circle and go to advanced, and I can look for fill here. You'll notice that it has a few different fills, but notice this one's got a lot of crazy formula in there. And then a shortcut to go to this formula up in the top bar is I can just click the word itself. The fill word is a button. Is that a new tip? I just learned that embarrassingly, like fairly recently, that you could, within the last year or so, that you could click this and have it take you to that formula. All All right, so then format text to kind of spread this out to see what's going on here. So I'm doing a formula, a condition, to decide whether this thing is filled in or not. So if, and this is, wow, this one's way more complex than that I thought it was going to be. So if one of these two things first, so in my if statement, the logical text portion is this whole thing right here. So then the comma is going to be, that's going to be the, so get the true value. I got to make sure I find all the pieces of my formula. Where's my true value? If true value is this thing right here, the icon previous one dot color. And then the false value is this last thing, this RGBA. Okay, so if one of these two things is the case, so I've got an or stuck in between here. So it's going to say if one of these exists, then we'll get into this next thing first, next. But let's go into what this or has got inside of it. So if this item step that I'm on is 0, and the variable is blank, which means I probably haven't clicked on anything yet. I probably just arrived here. So if it's 0 and blank, then, or the step that I'm on equals what the variable currently is, then show icon previous one dot color. Now, what is icon previous one? Let me see. Icon previous one. If I see the name of a control in a formula and I don't know where or what that is, I can go search for it. Icon previous one is, of course, the back button, the previous button, and I can see that that's what that one's called. So let's go back to the circle and its fill color. Okay, so so I'm referencing that previous one. So if you're changing the colors, Carolyn, then be sure and note that this little circle at the bottom, its color is referencing that back arrow. So just make your change to the back arrow, and then that change is going to propagate to the other things that are referencing it. So like if I go click on this back arrow and I go to its fill color, it's just got a, well, that's it. It's not going to be the fill color. It's going to be the color. Sorry. It's got this turquoise color. I'm going to change it to yellow. And look, notice that this circle's fill color changed to yellow. So that's really interesting, right? So let's go back to the circle fill color, go through the rest of this formula. And so if one of these is the case, that means that's the step that you're on, then that is going to show the color of this previous one icon. Otherwise, it's going to be blank. So now the outline color is going to be different than the fill color. So notice that when I change this arrow to yellow, it only changed the inside of the circle. But that is where we're adjusting. And again, this is the fill color that we're looking at of that circle. So that's how it knows to be dark. Do you have any questions about how that formula works? It's all about the guide step. Okay, so then if you know what this is kind of, let's see, this is kind of bothering me that the color of this right arrow isn't referencing the color of the left arrow. Let me see. I'm gonna make that, let's see, icon previous dot color there. Now I'll just be changing the color in one place. Now let's go see this little circle has got a outline color that doesn't change. So if I just type color, this is going to be, yeah, the border color is that little turquoise. So that's the one that's not, it's not changing as you click on things. Okay, so then what happens if, so as we scroll through things, it changes the number, which changes what verbiage is showing here, image that's shown here, and that this thing is filled. So now the verbiage itself is going to be similar to the logic in this image logic to make it show the appropriate verbiage according to what you've clicked on in that table. So that looks like this. Again, very similar. So if the guide step is blank, and again, it's probably blank if you're just opening the app for the first time and you haven't clicked on anything, then show the first thing in that table. Otherwise, do a lookup to that list of things in the table where the step is equal to your current variable guide step dot text. So in the other one over here, it was dot image, and this one is dot text, so that it knows to show the image versus the text. And how do I know image versus text? It's here in this table. See, I have this text column, and then I have this image column. And so each row has got its own text and image. Okay, what else in here? Haven't done the skip yet. So I would think the skip would just take you to whatever your next screen is in the app, just get them off of this screen. But let's see what it does. It sets the guide step to whatever the last step is. So let me try that out. So if I am here and I click skip, that just takes me to the last one. So you could probably change that if you wanted to. You could just make it so that it doesn't navigate and just navigates you away and just kind of gets you off that screen. If people don't need to be on that screen, why make them do extra clicks? So I can say, instead of setting a variable, I just want to navigate to my screen, my welcome screen. So then when people click skip, it just takes them to where they probably really want to be. Anything else that you all would want to customize in here, that you all want to change or add? This is a great time to kind of throw out like brainstorming ideas. What do you think? If you were doing a tutorial like this, what other kind of information might you want it to have in it? You have text, you have an image. What we can do next is go ahead and just add something, add an extra row so that there are going to be, or we can add a couple of them so that there are more dots down here, and see kind of how that would look. So in our table here, what I'm going to do is just take this whole row, this last row, and just put a comma, shift enter, and paste it. And then I'll call it step 4. Have it recognized if the user has already watched the tutorial. Oh, that's a good one, Carolyn. Oh, a video instead of an image? Okay, let's try those. Let me just add one more step here. This is the last step I just added. And then for my image, I can, let me add one more image. I've got 4 images that I uploaded in here. It's called review. Okay, and let's just see. It probably should just instantly show in here when I preview it and go to this last step. See, it automatically added a 5th dot. Here's my last step, and here's that image that I just added. So you said, can it show a video? Okay, so Carolyn's question about, can you have it recognize if the user has already watched the tutorial? That is something where we would have to store that information somewhere. Because when the Power App opens up, it needs to be able to reference some piece of data that tells it that. So what you can do is you could create a SharePoint list, and then each time somebody watches the tutorial and finishes it and clicks this button, you could have it when they click this button, it patches and creates a row over in a SharePoint list. And in that row, you could just put the username, like the currently logged in user's email address, and you can put that they finished the tutorial. And then you would just have like this running list of people's email addresses. But then you'd have to, when they open up the app, you'd have to go look at that list and go see if that person had was in the list and if they had done it yet. And then if they had, then you would navigate to another screen. So that could be for your welcome screen of your app, the start screen property. You can see up here, it's the start screen property. There's nothing in my start screen property right now, but that's where you could define a condition to say if basically the person's name does exist in that list. You'd have to do like a whole filter or a collect or variable to determine that. Then if it does, then automatically navigate. Well, actually, you don't use a navigate inside of the start screen property. You just put the name of the screen you want it to take them to. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Nick. A patch. That's Okay, so then the video. Now, the thing about the video question is a video is a completely different object in here. It's a different thing that you would be inserting. So when I go here and I go to media, image, of course, is, you have this list of all these different things, media things that you can insert, and video is a different thing. So I can insert a video option here. Now, while I'm doing this on YouTube, while I'm broadcasting, I'm not going to try and upload a video into my Power App. That would probably take up my bandwidth. But what you would do is then you would go to your media thing here and upload whatever tutorial video that you have where you want to teach them something, and then you'd have to upload it into your app. But then there's the question of, do I want it to show, if I wanted to show a video for every single thing, then I would basically replace this exact concept. Instead of having an image here, I would have a video in that spot. But then if you have some of them that are images and some of them that are videos, that could get a little trickier. So if you want just one of them to have a video, then you'd have to have logic that hides and shows different things here, because you can't have the image be, you can't have the image control show a video. So then I'd have to say like, okay, well, if, let's see, for my media, visible, I'd have to know like which step they were on. If I have like step 4, if, what is the name of that? Guide step. If guide step equals 4, then true, otherwise false. This is just off the top of my head, one thing that you could do. So then that way you only have one step that has a video if I did it like with this logic. So obviously you can make it more complex if you wanted to have maybe have your table have images and videos maybe in different columns in the table, and then you'd have to have a column maybe that said whether it was an image or a video. And so it could get much more, it's kind of hairier if you and more complicated if you have a mixture of them and you have multiple ones. So but this one is okay, I put the video in here, and then if notice that I'm number 1, I'm 0, 1, 2, 3, and then when I go to 4, because of that logic, then it would just show this one video. So that's like a little built-in video. And then when I go back, see it, then it's going to hide it again and show my images. So that's just a quick way that you could do that, to put a video in it. What else? Did anybody else have any ideas? No. But yeah, that was a great idea about the video. What else? Let me see. Probably just end a couple minutes early. You can go look at that guide step again. So yeah, so the guide step is being used when you click to go to the next thing. When you click on the circles at the bottom, it's used in the next and the previous, the arrows. And then those are the ones that set the variable. And then these are all the places that the variable is used. So it's that fill color of the circle, the image itself for it to know which image to show according to what's in that variable, the text that it's showing. Now, and then the on select, all that math that we looked at in the next button and the previous button. Oops, I just clicked on it. So when you click on one, when you're looking at the variable settings there, like I was doing, when you click on one of these purple things, it actually takes you to that formula. So I was pointing to this and I clicked on it and it jumped to the formula. So then it's also determining, oh, that's another thing we didn't look at, is that there's a visible property of this next and previous button, so that when you get to the very last one, the next button disappears. So I can say, so again, it's using that last function. The last thing. So it's only visible if the last thing is greater than what the current step is that's been clicked on. So then that's what makes it hidden if it equals the last step that's been clicked on. Nick says, can we see how it would work for end users? See how what would work this tutorial. This is, I'm previewing the app. So when they open the app, this is where it takes them to all the screens, and then they can just click skip and go to the welcome screen. Is that what you were asking? Yeah, Nick, I created this whole thing by going to this scenario and just clicking tutorial. And that's all the stuff we just showed was built in that tutorial screen. Yep. And you all let me know, there's an ideas channel in here if you have another one of those scenarios you'd like to go through. Oh, Nick, you say when they create a new app, how end users would... Oh, okay. Right. I think he answered his own question. Yeah, so the simple steps to customize this tutorial is that when you add this tutorial screen to your app, you immediately just click on this gallery down here, and the items property of the gallery is where you can directly go edit the text and upload your own images to media and put the names of your own images in here. So that's the quick steps, is just go directly to this table thing and start customizing it if you don't want to do anything else. But now you know all the math and how it all works. That's fun. Okay, well, let's see. Let me, I've got our schedule. Not schedule. There we go. Sorry. So today is the last power hour of the year 2022. So for those of you who are Ultimate members, we have one more meeting. That'll be December 28th. And then our next power hour is going to be next year, January 4th. So this is always where you can find when we're having our power hours. And I always send out an email the day before. I send out my newsletter the day before for you all to be able to vote on the topic. So let me switch it back over here. Thanks, Joelle, for coming. And thanks, everybody, for your lively chat. And I really appreciate it. You all have a great holiday, and it was fun chatting with you all today. See you next time. Check out iwmentor.com for training. Bye.